Hello, this is the sixth part of the series, that is what is intelligence. In this particular video, I'm going to tell you about the experiments that I have done on 4 o'clock plants. Maximum number of experiments have been done on sunflower. Of course, how it tracks the sun, why it tracks the sun, and so many things. And many of the scientists are of the opinion that it is all stored in the stem and its uneven growth, etc. Right from my high school days, I was curious to know about the opening and closing times of the flowers because I read somewhere that there was a flower clock. A Swedish scientist, Carl Linnaeus, called it as a flower clock, and he collected some 12 flowers that was blooming right from morning 6 o'clock to evening 6 o'clock. So I was waiting for an opportunity to see at least one such plant which opens at a precise time. And finally, my brother in law gave me one such plant called 4 o'clock plant. First of all, I would like to thank my brother in law Srinath for having brought those seeds from Texas, USA to India, and he gave it to me. The peculiar part is he gave it and I raised the plant, and after 3 4 months of enjoying its wonderful color, etc., a big question came to my mind, and that was the starting point of my experiment. When I told somebody that the 4 o'clock plant is blooming at around 4 o'clock, they laughed at me and told that it is the characteristic of 4 o'clock plant. But the big question what I got was the plant which was blooming at 4 o'clock Texas local time is now adjusted itself to 4 o'clock of Indian local time. Remember, it was the seed brought from there. So that clearly eliminates the seed memory. So seed is not storing the memory of what is called as biological clock. There must be some sensing element, storing element of the biological clock within the plant itself, because when I raised the plant here in India, it is adjusted to Indian local time, and to my astonishment, the flowers, I'll show you later anyway, pictures, the flowers were starting from 3:45, and peak number of flowers were there between 4 and 4:15, and then declining up to 4:45. So that was the pattern of number of flowers blooming from that plant. Of course, that used to stay opened till the next day 1 p.m. We'll discuss that later. My first experiment was to study the exact pattern that it is following. As I've already said, look at this particular starting of blooming that happened at 3:59 on that day, and as I've already told you, it peaks at 4 to 4:15. It takes nearly 45 minutes to completely bloom, and this is the same flower after nearly some 30 40 minutes. Next thing was that I plucked out a bud from the plant and I kept it in little water and observed what is going to happen. But remember, there was a considerable delay, and it started blooming like this at 6:45, and not at 4 o'clock. Then I thought that the sensing element is not there in the flower, but that was not the point. Later on, I realized that hydraulic pressure is required for blooming the flower, and that was through the plant, and therefore, such a long delay happened. I was waiting for a cloudy day, and fortunately, my city got a record high rainy cloudy day for about a week, and in that period I studied, but astonishingly the flowering time and its pattern was exactly the same as the sunny day. So that clearly means it is not simply sensing the sunlight like a sundial, because on those days it was extremely difficult to even point out the direction of the sun, because light was almost the same right from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Therefore, it must be something else that it is sensing, or there must be some mechanism for storing that particular information in the long run when it was growing. The next thing what I did was I kept the whole plant along with the pot inside my house, and of course even through the window there was no question of sunlight, because there was a thick curtain as you can see there. There I studied and got exactly the same result at 4 o'clock. So that clearly emphasizes that it is not simply sensing the sunlight, and the sensing mechanism is something else. Then I was astonished to see the seed formation rate, which was more than 80%. So 10 out of 8 flowers were giving rise to seeds. And remember, after 4 o'clock till the next day 10 o'clock, the movement of butterfly and such insects will be very less, and I do not know how this flower is getting pollinated so successfully. See, I have published all these things as a paper in a journal, because whatever we do, if we publish at least in a very small journal, then that will surface out when somebody searches in Google, so that they can continue from then on. It should simply not go as a waste. Also, I have suggested some further work in that particular paper. One of the interesting thing is, now it has this been the seeds that has been transported. We can think of carrying the flower itself from a country like India to another country like United Kingdom, where the difference in time zone is 5.5 hours. So when we take it in one day in a flight or whatever it is, what will happen to the blooming time? That will be an extremely interesting experiment. If it suddenly adjusts itself to the 4 o'clock UK time within the one day or whatever it is, then we have to seriously think of sensing element. We can also take it gradually through a shape several days and see what exactly will happen. Now there are evidences which I am going to discuss in the next series, that plants not only will sense, they will communicate between other plants, etc., with chemical signals and so many other things, which is extremely interesting. And of late, after 2011, more of such studies have been conducted, and all those things I will discuss in my next series. And thank you very much for listening.